Last but certainly not least, we have Taras, better known as the Ember Sherpa. As I just mentioned earlier, he just finished climbing a mountain and gained enlightenment as to his favorite web framework at the top of that mountain. So he's a bit tired. He might not look it, but he's a bit tired. As you can see, he has a walking cane to help him out, but he finally made it up that mountain. Anyway, he's so tired today that he, out of his delusion, told me that he's going to give away a free ticket to his upcoming Ember workshop to an audience member. So it's a $300 value. You must be really tired, sir. Make sure you get some rest when we're done here. So how it's going to work, it's going to work in traditional TorontoJS style, where Taras is going to give his talk. He's then going to ask the audience a question that he would have answered in his talk. You're then going to tweet the answer to TorontoJS, and then we're going to pick a winner out of all the correct answers. So just one more time, Taras is going to give his talk. At the end of his talk, he's going to ask you, the audience, a question. You, the audience, are going to tweet at TorontoJS with the answer, and then we're going to pick a winner at random from all the correct answers, and we'll get in touch with you for a ticket. But without further ado, Ember Sherpa, Taras, with Why Choose Ember?
Okay, hello. Hello, everybody. Down? Okay. So, I don't know if you noticed, but there's like half the people here. So I'm gonna assume that the people who left already using Ember. So, so I'm known as the Ember Sherpa. I run a company called Working Together, and we help, we mentor, we do Ember mentoring for teams. So Ember coined itself as a framework for building ambitious applications. I just saw foam, and I'm not sure what that means anymore, but but so before we get into Ember, you know, there's Angular, React, Backbone, and Polymer. So why would you choose Ember? And I would like to say that you would choose Ember because building ambitious web applications isn't only about code. And I know it might be like a crazy idea for a code meetup, but I'd like to say that building ambitious applications is about code and the people that write them. And it's about the tools that the people that write them use to write these ambitious applications. And the ideas that come out after you've written your application. So looking at code as the only thing when choosing a framework, I think, is like looking at an iceberg and seeing the top and assuming that's all there is to it. I think these other elements can sink a boat or at least slow you down. So I think you really should, you know, it's something worth thinking about. So I think Ember is happy paths around icebergs. And that's what I want to talk about. So let's talk about your team. So let's talk about experience that a team has. So I've been on a few different teams, and I know that we're all different. We all have different backgrounds. We have different experiences. Some of us done back-end development. Some of us done. Some of us started doing front-end development and just only done that for like 10 years. But one thing we know for sure is that nobody is good at everything, and knowing how to do something really well is really hard. And so Ember's solution to the fact that it's really hard to know how to do something really well is conventions. Conventions are best practices that are baked into the framework. And so what conventions do is they make being an expert not required. If you choose to use Ember, one thing that you get is you get excellent guides which document really all the aspects of building an application. And my guess is that, I mean, I know they're really helpful. When I started learning Ember, guides weren't there, or they were, but they weren't complete. And we've done a lot of work and continue to put a lot of work into making guides as good as possible. And the community is very proud of them. One of the things that you get with conventions is common solutions. So if we are using a framework like Ember that has conventions. If I have a problem and somebody else has done similar work, they will have a solution that I can use. And when you're talking to somebody, you can ask them, you could explain what you're going through, and they know exactly what that is because we're solving problems in the same way. And we have a very strong community. We have a great meetup here in Toronto, but I've been to a bunch of meetups all around North America, and the community is very strong. I've seen the same people come to the meetup for the last several years, and I think it's just getting better and better. And so when you've gone through, when you've gotten really good and you want to take it to the next level, you can read this Ember source code, and it's quite readable. You could actually learn a lot from reading source code that is approachable. And Ember really takes that very seriously. So now, we have conventions, but the other thing that we really have to consider about our team is that not every team, a team of developers who are building an application might have a bunch of backend developers who are learning to build applications in the front end, or they might have a few junior developers, or their lead architect might have moved on to do something else. And so knowing how to architect the application is actually really hard. And getting it right and not getting to a point a year or 2 years into your application where you wrote a bunch of code and you realize like this was a mistake, but there is 6 months of mistakes here. So I have to go back and undo those mistakes. Changing architectural problems is very hard. And so what Ember's solution to the fact that getting architecture right is hard is giving you a good architecture right off the bat. And Ember applications are route-driven. Route-driven makes URLs first, which means that when you're starting to design your application, first thing you think about is how are the user going to access my application? What URL are they going to go to access that application? And that's the starting point. And so what happens, the URL gets matched to a route, and then the URL is broken up into parameters. And these parameters are used to get data from the API, and then that data is bound to the template. And so this is the architecture of an Ember application that you get when you start to develop an Ember app. Ember applications, they consider one of the aspects of application architecture is route hierarchy. So route hierarchy dictates order in which data is loaded from your APIs. So if you have nested routes, route hierarchy implies nesting. So if you have routes or you have templates that need to be presented, or you have data that needs to be loaded before other data needs to be loaded. So for example, when a user comes to a page, to your application, first thing you want to do is get the user's account information, for example. You might want to get the user's profile information. So you might want to do that right off the bat, like first thing. So you can do that at the highest level route, and then that information becomes available for all the child routes. And this route hierarchy is used to actually render templates. So if you have a child, you have a parent template, the child template would actually be rendered into the parent. And this hierarchy is used to give you error and loading states. So if your application is loading data and you want to, and it takes a long time, so let's say it takes like 500 milliseconds to load that data, Ember will automatically give you a loading state. So your application will actually transition into a loading state where you can show a loading spinner, and you don't have to do anything for that. You just get that right away when you start building the Ember application. And you can do the same thing with error states. So if that request produced an error, then it will just transition to the error state, and you can show the user some 404 or some mean message. So the route-driven architecture makes your application very obvious. It makes the architecture very visible. any project you go to, Ember project, once you open a project, it looks the same. What that means is that you could be working on one project and you switch to, and you go to talk to your friend, or you switch jobs and you open another Ember project, and it's the same thing. So you can get started. I've seen people start committing first, second day. If they're Ember developers, they can just start doing that because there's very little new between projects. When you come to an application for the first time, first thing you do is you pop open the router.js file, which has it has all of the routes that your application uses, and you could, even if you're completely unfamiliar with the application, you could look at the URL, match it to a route in the router.js, and then by the file structure, find that file, and you can actually look what data is being used or what template is being used for that route. So what Ember does is it makes you and your team behave and seem like a pro. I've heard this from many developers who started with Ember 6 months into it. They would end up being the only developer because the other developer moved on because they got a promotion, a different company. I don't know if this counts as a promotion, but the end result is that you look like you've been doing application development for 5 years because you've done things right for the last 6 months. Another thing that is really important, and it doesn't seem to be important until you actually start writing an application, is the build tools. And it's important because if you're working with other people, it can cause a lot of bike shedding. Or basically that means is that you end up talking a lot about something because it is important, because there are a lot of different ways of doing it, and there's a lot of different things involved. Like for example, first thing you have to ask yourself, it's like, how are you going to organize your code? So are you going to use AMD modules? Are you going to use CommonJS? Are you going to use Grunt or Gulp or Webpack to compile all these concatenate all these files into something that you can distribute to your users? Are you going to use one of the preprocessors? Which one, and how are you going to set that up? And are you going to use ES5, which is available on all the browsers, or are you going to use ES6, which is much better? It has newer features, or even ES7, which is coming up, but none of the browsers support it. So if you're going to use any of these features, how are you going to make sure that browsers that don't support it actually can run your applications? And so how do you build all this stuff, test it, and deploy it? So wiring all this stuff together is pretty tough. And Ember's solution to it is Ember CLI. Ember CLI is a command line tool that gives a developer everything they need to be productive right off the bat. Ember CLI includes Babel.js, which transpiles your ES6 and ES7 code into ES5, which you can ship to your users. You can install you can opt in to use one of the SAS preprocessors with just one command to install one of these preprocessors. And it allows you to use, it includes the HTML bars compiler, which will compile your templates into JavaScript code that you can ship to your customers. Any file that you would write with Ember, or in your Ember project, you can generate with a generator. And it has generators for all kinds of files, routes and components, and some of the most common ones. When you generate a file, it will automatically generate a test file for you. So it actually gives you a structure for writing the tests. You have something to start with. You don't have to go dig it up and figure out how to actually test that thing. You just get that right away. And it even gives ways of handling mocking data for your tests and handling proxying, so you could actually develop your application, and it makes this a lot easier. So Ember CLI includes a test runner. The test runner allows you to run acceptance, integration, and unit tests. So it's a complete test suite, so there's really no excuse for not writing tests. It's very common to see 1,000+ asserts on an Ember project because it's really easy. And you can cover your tests. There's basically at every level. out of the box, when you create an Ember project, you get a way to run these tests on a CI server. So you don't have to go figure that out. You just get that, and you can run the same tests in a browser. Ember CLI makes it possible for us to install and create add-ons. So add-ons, these are Ember add-ons. There's over 1,000 add-ons. Over 1,000 add-ons. Some add-ons are as simple as make this jQuery, let me use Bootstrap with one install, for example. That's one add-on. Another add-on might be, make this jQuery plugin easier to use instead of an Ember app. Or an add-on could be give me a whole component that will give a certain kind of behavior, like a calendar, for example, customized calendar written specifically for Ember. So add-ons can be very comprehensive. You can see them all on emberaddons.com. And emberobserver.com has the same add-ons, but they're categorized better. And once you've got your application, you can build it by running Ember build production. And this will create, it will transpile and concatenate all of your JavaScript code and fingerprint all your assets and give you a directory of files that you can use to upload to a server. And it has like an index file and has links to all the JavaScript files and CSS files, and it'll just run your application. But obviously, it gets more complicated than that. If you have a Rails backend, or you want to deploy your application to S3, or you have a different way, like you want to automate your deployment process, there is an add-on called Ember CLI Deploy, which has plugins for it that allow you to deploy to all kinds of different backends. So, and there's a recommended way of doing deploys. So if you go to learn about this add-on, it will guide you to the best ways to deploy Ember. So with Ember, you don't have to waste time trying to figure out how to build an application. You install Ember CLI and you get building, and you can build your app within the first 10 minutes of well, it's not going to do much, but but you could build a production-ready version of your app that's just going to say, "Welcome to Ember," in 10 minutes. Okay, so and this is a fun one because new ideas are really amazing. And so let's walk a little bit down the new ideas train. And so before Backbone, we had jQuery spaghetti. So you build an app that and you do everything by hand, and it becomes really difficult to manage. So Backbone came out, and it gave us class structure for our front-end applications. And it gave us models, so it actually gave us a way to represent data inside of our application. And it gave us a way to write custom events, and then and it kind of fit within the Backbone architecture. And so you have your spaghetti code, and you have your Backbone app. And there's Backbone, and you're like, okay, well, I want to use Backbone, so I'm going to rewrite my spaghetti code to use Backbone. And some time goes by, and then Angular comes out, and you're like, oh, cool, this thing is so easy to get started with, and it has like HTML templates, and has two-way bindings, and has directives, so I can like insert custom functionality into HTML elements. Like, this is so awesome. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my Backbone app to Angular. Cool. All right. So then React comes out. You're like, okay, well, it's got one-way data flow. That's cool. Have virtual DOM. So and together with diffing gives us some really amazing performance. And my my React app is cool, but I think my Angular app is cool, but I think I gotta go to React. So because things also has server-side rendering. So like, okay, I'm gonna upgrade to React. So I'm gonna rewrite my app in React now. Like, okay, well, you've done this like 4 times now, and so. And the problem is that adopting new ideas is really hard. It usually requires rewriting your application, because figuring out how to screw on DOM diffing onto your version of implementation of AngularJS could be really difficult. And especially depending on how much code you have. Like if you have a big application, it could be either very difficult or impossible. And so Ember's solution to this problem is this concept of stability without stagnation. Stability without stagnation is a way to future-proof your applications. And to enable stability without stagnation, we have this six-week release cycles, which introduce new features into the framework every 6 weeks. Every new feature starts off in canary release, where you can experiment with the feature, and if it proves to be like usable and actually improves the experience of building applications, that feature goes into beta, and then once it goes into beta, six weeks later, it will end up in stable. And to make this work, Ember respects Semver a lot. So Semver is a way of versioning your application in a way that communicates what the developer can expect expect to see in a particular release. So one thing that's really kind of different about how Ember does it, that Ember doesn't introduce new features in a major release. We only remove deprecations. So like if you going from Ember 1.13 to Ember 2, there's no new features. We're only removing functionality. New features are added in minor releases. So going from 1.12 to 1.13, we had a huge feature change, and we add deprecations. So basically, if a feature is on the way out, so we realize that feature isn't working, we gotta deprecate it. In a minor release, we add a deprecation, and we have a tool called Ember Inspector, which is in the browser. You can see visualize your application, and it'll actually show you all the deprecations for your app. So to prepare your application for the next release, all you have to do is just find those deprecations in a list and go in and refactor your application to take those deprecations out. And we have a guide that describes the deprecations and how to refactor your application to cover that. And there's actually some tools now for refactoring the code automatically to eliminate some of the manual labor. And so the patch releases are just incremental, like small patches that we have to make to the application. So what this does is it allows us to upgrade our application incrementally. So instead of waiting for writing a bunch of code and not making any improvements to your code for months, 6 months to a year, what you do is as Ember upgrades, you get deprecation warnings, so you get kind of like bumps to, okay, it's time to upgrade this feature, remove this feature, or prepare yourself for what's coming up. And so if you have a good acceptance test suite, this makes it really easy, because you could just run your acceptance tests, and if your application if your test's not failing, you get deprecation warnings, you refactor it, and it's still working. Okay, you're fine. You're ready to upgrade to the next version. So you remove deprecation warnings, and the plan with the way that this stability without stagnation is designed to work is that all of the releases are planned for you to be able to upgrade your application within one development cycle. So if you have a big application, that might take you 3 weeks, but the idea is that it should be attainable within one development cycle, whatever iteration cycle that you use internally. And so what this does is that it allows us to adopt new ideas. And the best example of this is when React introduced virtual DOM and DOM diffing. There was a joke that all the best ideas end up in Ember, because it became apparent that React's one-directional data flow and virtual DOM with DOM diffing was much better than what we had in Ember. And so as of version 1.13, we shipped DOM diffing and one-directional data flow in Ember. So any app that's using that was using 1.12, it will get a bunch of deprecation warnings, but then upgrade to 1.13, they will get that feature for free, basically. It's only the work that's required for you to refactor, to remove functionality that doesn't enable one-direction data flow. And so this is huge for, so this is huge for us. For us as developers, this is huge. It gives us kind of guide rails, and it gives us support to actually build a better, like incrementally improving application over time without creating scenarios where you have to go to your boss and be like, you know what, like we have to rewrite this application, and the boss doesn't understand because they don't write code. Like you could actually like just avoid the whole thing by just having a path to upgrade to the next version. So Ember makes adopting new ideas possible without doing rewrites. So in summary, I think you should choose Ember because it makes you and your team function like pros. It allows you and your team to be productive, and it makes adopting new ideas easy. So I'm going to be giving a workshop on August 8th. It's going to be on building an app in a day. I think if I did it in foam, I'd probably do it in like 20 minutes. But but yeah, so we're going to build an app in a day with Ember 2.0, Firebase, and material design. If you want to learn how to do that, it's $300 if you use this discount code there. It's going to be $250. It's actually with Lighthouse, so it's pretty awesome that we're here. It's with this place. So, so it's going to be, I think it's going to be a really great workshop, and you can learn about it more on that URL. And so, I didn't tell you the answer to this question, but you can just, okay. So, okay, just tweet what is your favorite reason to choose Ember. There's no wrong answers.
Can my answer be the Ember Sherpa? Can that be my favorite reason to use Ember?
That'd be very nice.
That's the right answer, guys. That's what you have to say. All right, thank you so much, Taras.